Was there an Adam? Was there an Eve? Or did we evolve from what we conceived? Either way, we got what we needed when the sun shone down on the Garden of Eden.
Don't you know we're gonna have a Solartopia, Solartopia.
Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for our 30th, number 30 Zoom call on Grassroots Election Protection Coalition, also known as Election Protection 2024. We have an incredibly full agenda today, as usual. Welcome to our listeners at the Progressive Radio Network for the Green Power and Wellness Show. Thank you, PRN and Jesse, for putting this up every week. This is, for everybody's information, this is podcast live on the Progressive Radio Network on Thursdays at 5 p.m. They only get an hour of it, so our calls go for an hour and a half, but that's how it is. So glad to have everybody with us. Our engineers again, our chief engineers, Mike Hirsch with Steve Caruso. We've got Bob FITRAKIS, our general counsel and money man, and also the great JOEL SEGAL, who's going to talk to us about gerrymandering and of course the need to support the NAACP Atlanta group chapter. We have Ray McClendon, the political director, on. Again, we're getting down to it. We are going to start with Georgia, but I can't resist. Later in the program, as you know, and as you saw from the flyer, two major figures in the Trump world have called for martial law and the suspension of the Constitution. And I posted in the flyer I sent you a link. I don't know how many of you watched it. It is a very long, I watched the whole thing. It's a very long discourse from a guy in Northern Ohio explaining why they want to suspend the Constitution and impose martial law and have a new election. And I don't know about you guys, but I take this very seriously. This is not standard procedure in American elections. And I'm a historian, and we have not seen this kind of behavior before following an election. Donald Trump is the 10th American president incumbent to lose an election. And he has lost by the third biggest margin in US history, behind Jimmy Carter and Herbert Hoover. And so this is not normal behavior, and I take it very seriously. We're also going to have a summary of the national, a quick summary from Pete Pekarsky and Bob FITRAKIS on the national legal situation. The key swing states, one of them, Pennsylvania, is already at the Supreme Court. And we have had, discourse from Alito, and we can expect some kind of rulings, whether they refuse the cases or not, on Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, and Pennsylvania on this election. So, with people calling for martial law and with the cases going to the Supreme Court, this is serious stuff, and we will get to it in a couple of minutes. Well, probably be a while, but we're going to get deep into it. That's our country, as far as I'm concerned, has never been in greater peril. Certainly not, and there's no peril situation to this. This is not normal behavior. In the history of the United States, only once has a president refused to show up for the inauguration of the incoming elected president. And that was in 1800, when John Adams had a hissy fit and left Washington a couple hours before the inauguration of Thomas Jefferson. Now we're facing a situation, and which we will discuss in great detail further on in the call. But first, I do have someone from Michigan to give us a quick report. As many of you may know, armed militia showed up at the house of the Secretary of State of Michigan. And, this is serious business. So, Ms. Taylor, are you on the call with HEDY?
I am here. Yes, I am.
Okay. Can you give us a quick report of what you've faced in Michigan, please?
What we've been facing in Michigan is what you all have already identified. We have armed militia, the Wolverine boys, all manners of people that are residents of the Michigan that show up in Lansing armed, go into the state capitol armed. This is an ongoing situation, and Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson was greeted just very recently with a number of armed opponents, I guess we can call them, at her home. So this is not unusual at all. You cannot take a poster, you cannot take a flyer, you cannot take any demonstration items into the state capitol in Michigan, but you can take an assault rifle. It's nuts. We have filed a lawsuit. Thank you, Ms. HEDY, for inviting me to appear and to make a couple of statements with these colleagues this evening. The NAACP Legal Fund, Defense and Education Fund, has helped to file a lawsuit against the President of the United States for violating sections of the Voting Rights Act. The case has been assigned to a judge. His name is Emmett Sullivan. We are waiting for the next round of whatever these fights are. But my goodness, no one ever expected this. And I listened to some of the speakers that have shared this information. I certainly didn't expect to see anything like this, but it does not surprise me, because voter suppression for folks that might be born with a tan is not unusual. This kind of stuff happens all the time. What is the shock is that I expect this kind of thing to happen in Mississippi and in Alabama. I don't expect voter suppression efforts to occur in Michigan. And so that's where we are. There are more lawsuits being filed. They might be slowed down now because Mr. Giuliani, who talked about fake COVID, ended up with real COVID. So, now we can wait and see what's going to happen next. So our lawsuit is filed and it has been assigned.
Now, the federal judge, Emmett Sullivan, that you filed this case with, is the same judge that dragged Louis DeJoy from the post office in front of his court to demand that they sweep the post offices and send in ballots. Isn't that the same judge?
I believe it's the same judge, and he's got a number of activities that he's been involved with that indicates he has a short fuse in terms of the Trump administration. Yes.
So who filed you filed your suit with the NAACP?
A Legal Defense and Education Fund. That's correct.
That's the national NAACP.
That's the national office. That's
okay.
right.
Ray, from the Atlanta NAACP, are you familiar with this filing at all?
Yes, just from what, however, I've just read in the news reports. But it's certainly a blessing to have it before that particular judge, because as Sister Taylor just said, he is no fan of the Trump administration and has kept them on a short leash whenever possible.
Well, this is an amazing development. I went to school at the University of Michigan, and I never saw people walking around with assault rifles openly. Well, thank you, Sister Taylor. Does anybody else want? Joel, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. Hi, Maureen Taylor. I'm Joel Segal. I'm the co-convener. How are you?
I'm wonderful this evening.
I worked for Congressman Conyers for 13 years, so I spent a lot of time in Michigan.
Okay.
It was my second home for a long time. But I do want to tell you that there is an African-American senior state legislator in the North Carolina General Assembly who'll be introducing a legislation that I will be co-authoring, which will outlaw these militias, outlaw the Klan, and outlaw white nationalist groups. We can't talk about voter suppression and election protection without talking about those who are trying to suppress the vote. And as a graduate of UNC Law School with a focus in constitutional law, I can tell you that not all free speech is protected. You cannot shout fighting words, you can't say fire in a theater. I really don't think the Constitution protects the freedom of assembly to go terrorize an elected official. Do you?
Yes,
No.
not only do I believe that they have the right to do that, I believe that they believe they have the right to do that. And I hear what you're saying, but I'm also aware that, again, if you show up on this earth with a tan on your face right away before you show up in the sun, there are things that will happen to you. So as much as I am absolutely on your side of the fence on this fight, you're talking about taking on the National Rifle Association. And if you're going to do that, then for every gun owner, they're going to fight you. That's why we have the Wolverine boys that threaten the Michigan governor. They're going to kidnap her and kill her. And they say that with impunity. So I understand, I'm on everybody's side. I want to have a peaceful transition, but that's not going to be possible. And it doesn't seem possible, especially when the president says, whatever you do to me now, I'm going to come back in 2024 and I'm going to do it to you and your mama and your daddy. So let's see if you can stop him. I'm on your side.
Oh, no, you're right. I actually,
they don't play fair. They don't play fair.
We're going to kick their ass, to be honest with you. And we have to have a Kobe Bryant, Black Mamba attitude. We can't be so nice and docile to these people, because when they threatened the governor of Michigan's life, what if they had actually gotten away with kidnapping and murdering her? And well, I'm just saying, if domestic terrorism if ISIS is a threat and Al-Qaeda is a threat, I'll just conclude by saying there is no difference between ISIS and Al-Qaeda and these extremist domestic terrorist groups. They need to be outlawed. It's why Germany is having a problem with the reemerging of the Nazi movement, is Merkel won't outlaw these groups. They got to be outlawed. There's no reason for them to assemble or have websites, because all they're doing is fomenting violence, hatred, and voter suppression. That's all. Thank you.
All right, and I'll sign off too, but I'll sign off with a quote from one of my favorite historians, and that will be Sean Connery. And when Sean Connery asked that question, who brings a knife to a gunfight? And that's what we're talking about here. Who brings a knife to a gunfight? Thank you so very much for allowing me to share a little bit of information. And Hetty, I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. Richard Askins, give a hand, and then we're going to go to Georgia. Richard Askins, was there something?
Yeah, sorry I got here a few minutes late, but I've been listening to most of it so far. There was a question about why these things happen in Michigan and used to in the South. My best estimate from studying this and knowing people that were this uneducated and this sick is that probably 25 to 33% of the population is reasonably crazy and allocates of Trump. And they're going to be all over the nation. They're going to be more in certain areas, but they're going to be all over the nation. And we've got to be very hard on them legally. And we've got to take away their guns if it comes down to it, one way or the other. Even, this man is a fascist, Trump, and he may even try a coup. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will get to that later in the call. Thank you, Hetty, for bringing Sister Taylor on. We're going to go to Georgia, Ray McClendon, and then Cheryl Moses. Ray, can you give us an update on what's happening? And Cheryl, can you join in immediately after Ray? That would be great.
Sure. As most of you already know, we have today, the last day of our voter registration drive. We have people deployed all around the state in our NAACP coalition with various counties around the state, including Valdosta, where the president was. We had a Valdosta-led voter registration drive at a separate location on Saturday. We now, after today, will commence in earnest both a texting program as well as a phone banking program across the state to get out Black voters. And the canvassing program also started in the counties that we're focused on across the state that represent 77% of Black voters. We're in collaboration with other groups, just so everyone knows, this comes up a lot. The NAACP Atlanta put together a coalition of 19 counties where 77% of African-American voters live. That coalition includes other grassroots and on-the-ground organizations that reflect the influences in the Black community in those counties. That includes the Black sororities and fraternities called the Divine Nine, many churches in those various counties, 100 Black men, 100 Black, the Coalition for 100 Black Women, the Masons, Prince Hall Masons of Georgia, as well as the People's Agenda and the New Georgia Project. We've also had a collaboration with Black Voters Matters as well. So that coalition is hard at work. The great thing about having a coalition is that what we've done is we've become more efficient and more effective through our collaboration in the general election, so that we're deploying resources so that everyone is not doing the same thing in the same location. So there are different organizations that are focused on counties in Atlanta. Others are focused in the metro area where there's about 40% of the Black vote. Others are going into the rural counties so that although they might be red counties, they will also not be quite as red by having a concerted effort to get the vote out. And then others have even more targeted demographics and low propensity voters, meaning those that have not voted in one or more of the most recent elections. So all of that now is going in earnest to getting the vote out, and the early voting starts on December the 14th. We're fast approaching the time when it is going to be too late, and many folks think that it's too late now to even request. If you have not already requested an absentee ballot, it's probably going to be better to focus on early voting. So our plan, we have something called Plan Your Vote, to get people to really focus now and make a determination as to whether or not they want to vote by mail, early vote, or vote on election day. It was very effective in the general election, and we'll be doing the same thing through these various coalition members through January 5th. Finally, I want to say everyone's familiar with the 2 Senate races in Georgia. There is a third runoff race, which is for the Public Service Commission. Daniel Blackman is an African-American who is in the runoff for that race. There are no Democrats on the 5-member Public Service Commission at this time. Moreover, there hadn't been an African-American on that Public Service Commission. So this is an opportunity to make history and to have diversity, but also in policy. I have sent out to you, I sent out to Harvey, I sent you some of the background information on Daniel. So I spoke with him. He was delighted to know that there are groups like this that are interested in his race. He shared some material with me, and we can share that with the rest of the group. But certainly our efforts that we're taking also is including to share with everyone that they should be voting in this PSC race, because it is very important for utility rates among low and moderate income citizens and Black people in Georgia. Also the broadband internet, which is certainly an issue in not only rural communities, but also in our urban communities as it relates to the digital divide. So those are all talking points that he's very concerned about. And so I think that's something we need to keep in the forefront as we move on this race, is to not only look at the Senate races, but also the Public Service Commission.
Yes, indeed. And thank you for that, Ray. We're going to go to Cheryl Moses, and then we're going to have Glenn Carroll from the nuclear group in Georgia to explain real quickly what the stakes are at the nuclear plant there. I mean, it's one of the great ironies of history that here you have these incredibly pivotal Senate races in Georgia, and right on the same ballot, the down ballot race has to do with the last 2 nuclear plants to come online. With at $30 billion, they can bankrupt the state of Georgia. And the supposition is that all politics are local. And even though no one on the national scene is talking about this PSC race in Georgia, it means a heck of a lot. It could actually decide the election. Cheryl Moses, can you jump in with us? And then we'll go to Glenn
Yeah.
Carroll.
Sure. As I was saying to you all when I first got on at 5, that we are focusing and working with David Blackman, because what I did was, because everybody is galvanizing around the Senate race, nobody was pushing anything about David Blackman. So we have a town hall with him coming up on December 17th as part of the Progressive Democrats of America Greater Atlanta chapter monthly meeting. And as I said at the beginning of the call, that we have designed and printed 10,000 door hangers that on one side is all information about David Blackman, and on the other side, we are promoting the 2 senators. We were able to raise money for that. So I'm thankful that we were able to do that. And we will be hitting 4th district of the PSC. And that's one thing that I found. That's the reason I wanted to focus on David, is because, as I said, everyone is all talking about the senators, and no one is talking about David. And even the advertisement, I think, I even sent an email over to Georgia Democrats that they should be pushing David Blackman as well. He would be the first black man, I love his name. He would be the first black man to run for that office. And, that has always been a good old boy 5 panel of folks making these decisions. And as I said earlier, we rank 5th as far as the highest utility rates. And it's all about civic education. And what I'm finding, because I do target a lot of young college age folks, is that when I say, Public Service Commission, they'll be like, what? That has nothing to do with me. But then when I break it down to them, yes, it does. This is your electricity. This is your gas. This is telecommunication, telephone. Then it's like a light bulb comes off in their head, and they're ready to go. So that's what we're doing. We'd love to make sure all of you all join us on the 17th. We have, as I said, David Blackman will be on, and we'll have some questions for him, and we'll be engaging and giving the community an opportunity to hear from him firsthand.
Can you put the link to that, Cheryl, into the chat?
I sure will.
Please do. It's actually Daniel Blackman, and it's great that you're doing this. Everybody's talking about Mitch McConnell and everything, but the rural counties.
That's right. It is Daniel Blackman. I'm sorry.
The rural counties in Georgia don't have broadband, for God's sakes, and that's the kind of thing that can swing an election. Glenn Carroll, thank you so much for that, Cheryl. It's great to have you on. Glenn Carroll, you and I have been working on nuclear issues for about 40 years. It's the first time I think I've ever seen your face, although we may have met many, many years ago. Can you tell us what's happening with the nuclear plants there? This is relevant to I just want to point out that Cheryl mentioned that Daniel Blackman would be the first African-American on the PSC in Georgia. I want to point out that he's running against an 80-year-old white guy named Bubba. So
yes,
kind of frames the race there. Okay, go ahead, please. Glenn is a great anti-nuclear activist, safe energy activist there in Atlanta. Go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you, Harvey. I do have a picture queued up. Did you want to give me a share screen or something so I can show the construction site of Vogtle? The T is silent. It's pronounced Vogtle. I want to tell y'all, Georgia is the biggest state east of the Mississippi. It is huge. It has 169 counties, and it's a lot of ground to cover. It's the capital of the South. We have the CDC. We have a Federal Reserve Bank. We have the busiest airport in the world. It's a deal. Daniel Blackman will be representing District 4, which is the northern district of Georgia that borders Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina. But it's a statewide election. And the Public Service Commission is too obscure for the amount of power it wields. Georgia Power is unbelievable. They bought the gas company a few years ago. They're a monopoly, and they appear to own the Public Service Commission. Daniel Blackman will be a breath of fresh air. He's been great. He's been active. He ran the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016. So it'll be a long haul to really get full influence from him. In 2 years, one seat will come open, and it'll be another 2 years before we can hope to get a majority of 3 on the Public Service Commission. So now, Harvey, did you want me to show a picture of Vogtle?
If you can, folks, I just want you to get, I know a lot of people are calling into Georgia. I just want to give a sense of the scope of the issue here. These are the last 2 nuclear power plants that will be built, big ones that will be built in the United States. Within the last couple of years, another nuclear plant, which was being built in South Carolina, right next door to Vogtle, went belly up, $10 billion. There you go. This is $30 billion invested in these 2 new nuclear plants in Georgia. And this is what the stakes are in the PSC race. And I guarantee you that the world nuclear industry, not just the American, but the world nuclear industry is deeply vested in having these 2 reactors come online. There's a big question of whether they're actually ever going to open. The 2 in VC Summer did not open. After $10 billion, this is $30 billion. These 2 reactors were facilitated by a guaranteed loan that Barack Obama gave of $8.3 billion. And then Trump added $2.7 billion. So you got $12 billion in federal money. And if these plants come online, Georgia has absolutely no economic future. So, and this is the 3rd race on this Senate contest. And people in Georgia, this will have a huge impact on the state. So this is the kind of down ballot race that can blindside people. That's great. Thank you for showing that, Glenn. And
how do I get rid of it?
Okay, yeah. So I don't know. If,
I guess unshare me or something.
So Mike, there you go.
Is there any possibility that we could hold Biden's feet to the fire on this and say, you want 2 Senate seats, can the nuclear crap in Georgia?
Well, look, but I'm gonna disagree with Harvey about this bankrupting Georgia. We have a large population to spread the pain around. South Carolina did not, and that was a big factor in why they canceled their reactors. These reactors in South Carolina and the reactors in Georgia is the same game plan. They're not identical designs, but they had the same lineup of contractors. We both fell for the construction work in progress. We called it different things in our different states. But
the builders are the same people who did Fukushima.
No, they aren't.
Okay, listen, let's just focus this on the race now.
Yes, and so I want to point something out. Ernest Moniz was the Secretary of the Department of Energy under Obama. This has been a bipartisan boondoggle. When Vogtle was started, there were 33 reactor orders. 4 reactors actually began construction, and now there are 2 that persist. This is history repeating itself. In that photograph, you saw the steam coming out of the 2 operating reactors. We did this 30 years ago. We did a 20-year build. It was 1,000% cost overruns. You know,
Okay.
fortunately, as far as I know, the only real downside is a nuclear waste inventory. We haven't had a serious accident. We almost did. We almost had a Fukushima when the first two reactors were pretty new, about 3 years into their operating. They
Okay.
had a station blackout, changed
So
the regulations for the country. But Ernest Moniz was the Secretary of Energy.
Right.
He is on Southern Company's board. He's on the Nuclear Threat Initiative board. He is on Biden's shortlist.
yes, we do not
Transition
want,
team. So we got a
not-
lot of work to do with Biden, folks. He's no, you know, he's not advocating for anti-nuke by a long shot.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, for Glenn. That's great. So I think
Can
we
I
all
give you an
understand.
update on how we are doing with the mega boondoggle?
No, not right now. We
move on.
want to move. This is focused on the election. Can you put your contacts in the chat, Glenn? Anybody wants to learn more about what's happening with Vogtle? This actually could wind up deciding these Senate races. So we have to be very careful. And Daniel Blackman is a good candidate. He will be campaigning, I understand, in the rural areas. Broadband is a big issue there. And as the campaign intensifies, I think we're going to see this third race become more of a factor. Thank you very much, Glenn. Let people know how to get a hold of you in the chat, please. And just understand, everybody, that this $30 billion nuke, along with the appointment of Ernest Moniz, which we strongly oppose, is in the balance. Okay, thank you, Glenn. I appreciate that. Really great to have you on. Okay, Joel Segal. Let's look at the bigger picture now, please.
Oh, there's a great guest. I want to lift up Ray McClendon, Political Action Director, NAACP Atlanta. NAACP Atlanta is one of the most effective and powerful civil and human rights organizations in America. And in order to get out the vote, and they have organized there's 18 NAACP chapters who are working on this. They need $350,000. So Ray and I and many others are going to raise that $350,000, right, Ray? We're going to raise it. And
Yes,
Jen,
sir.
now we're going to do this. And now, Ray, can you explain we're not asking anybody for any donations right now. However, I have put in the chat my email and my number. If you're interested in donating, we're trying to get to Tom Steyer. We're trying to get to Al Gore. We're trying to get to the left 1%, but we're also trying to get small donations, just like the way Bernie funded his campaign. You get thousands of people to give $10, $20. Ray, can you say like what would happen with that 350,000? What can you do to get out the vote? How could that impact the election?
Well, thanks to everyone on the call who's already stepped up to help us and support us in one way or the other. But this is a grassroots effort that we have coordinated. We've been at this for many, many years, and I've been involved with the executive committee of the NAACP Atlanta for the last 5 years. And what we found is that we don't get much help from the Democratic Party. We haven't gotten much help in the past from corporations and others. And what you need in order to get the vote out in the Black community is relational influences. In other words, you got to have people on the ground who know the local players, who can organize to get to individuals to convince and commit people to step up. The challenge is that we see a lot of money from PACs and other folks putting money into TV ads, and TV ads really are just not going to move the needle. In the general election, we were able to put out hundreds of thousands of flyers, door hangers, from thousands of volunteers who were canvassers. We did virtual phone banking and as well as texting. We had 19 different weekend voting strolls to the polls, parties to the polls, souls to the polls type events in the various counties. And, each one of those events cost us between $3,000 and $5,000 to put on, to have the music trucks, the different digital billboard trucks, and to provide a venue with food and everything. And most of the time, the venues were across the street or contiguous to a Saturday voting location where we could actually tell people, not only we need you to be energized to vote, but you can go and vote once you leave our event. We're planning to do the same thing going forward. As an example, we need to order about 500,000 door hangers this week. So we'll have them to start next week for early voting. We need to have those digital mobile ad trucks running in every one of these counties starting next weekend to be available on the 19th, when we're going to have what we're calling votercades that'll be going around the various counties. And I want to give a shout out to again, many new friends that we've met through this, like the Center for Common Ground is actively involved with us now in many of these counties, as they were already on the ground, and they're going to be part of our coalition. So when you start adding up the cost of all of those things, the budget that we're talking about is real. But all of the 100% of what we're raising goes directly to activities to get out the vote on the ground in those counties. And we found that it's been effective, and we want to continue that through January the 5th.
Ray, can you post how people can donate and get in touch with the Atlanta NAACP? Can you put that in the chat, please?
Sure.
Okay, so I have, whenever people ask me who to donate to, and we are not asking for money on this call. We never have, and we won't. But people are asking me all the time where to send money and where to send support. And we and Joel and I in particular, Joel's been very close to this with great expertise and brilliance, and have come to the conclusion that we want to support the Atlanta NAACP for on the ground campaigning through the January 5th election. So that's where it's at. We do heartily endorse scrutineers, Emily's group, and Tatanka's work with the indigenous, all those as well. And Emily, you and Tatanka are welcome to put your links in the chat as well. But the NAACP in Atlanta is at the cutting edge right now. And you also are very aware of Daniel Blackman's campaign, Ray. You're coordinating with him as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we did. I don't have it with me right now, but we can get you the direct information on his campaign and some of his positions on the issues that Glenn and others have already talked about.
Okay, great. And we will invite Daniel on the call. I will also invite Bubba to come on. And we can. Is someone speaking? I didn't.
Yeah,
see.
it's Cheryl.
Cheryl, yes, please.
Yeah, as I was saying, I would like for you all to put it on your calendar for Thursday, December 17th, 7:00 p.m. I've put the Zoom information in chat. We will have Daniel Blackman on with us for a town hall discussing everything around the PSC, Vogtle, what he's going to do. So we would love for you all to come on our call and engage with Daniel on the 17th.
Okay, put that in the chat if you have already. Cheryl, I'm really glad you brought that up. That's really good. And so that chat will be very interesting, especially with this incredible focus on Georgia. And, we don't want to get blindsided by this PSC race, because I guarantee you the nuclear industry is going to pour in a ton of money to defeat him. So that's really good. Okay. Emily put in Emily, do you want to say a quick word about the NAACP and what you're doing? Emily Levy?
It's Levy, thanks. No, I just wanted to say that you were suggesting that people might want to contribute to scrutineers, and I would rather see people contribute to the Atlanta NAACP now than to scrutineers. The focus really needs to be on Georgia right now.
Great, that's very gracious of you and important as well. I want to ask two questions. We had something come up, Ray, maybe you can answer this to Cheryl, about the law and them restricting registration of with car registration, requiring that. And then I also saw that, and maybe this is wrong, the Georgia legislature was contemplating a legislation requiring some kind of ID to get an absentee ballot. Is that are there either of those in the hopper, or is that misunderstanding?
Let me first say, this car registration rumor has been going around for several weeks now. And there's no requirement that you have a car registration or that you own a car. We've been around the state registering over 300,000 voters, new voter registrations since the November 3rd election. And that's just not a requirement. It would take a change in state law for that to occur. So that is not a requirement. That's number one. So we need to dispel that. Now, what's confusing is that there is a lawsuit that was filed by several groups, including Black Voters Matter, related to voter purges, but those were purges prior to September that occurred. So it kind of confused people when the lawsuit came out right now, as if it had something to do with people being purged literally between the time of the general election and the runoff. So that's also a bit of a misunderstanding or misinformation. There is a lawsuit. It is for voter purging level at the Secretary of State, but it's for prior to September, because the law is that you can't purge within 90 days of an election.
Okay, good.
Right.
So you're not having that problem. Okay.
Yeah, so we're not having that problem. Our focus right now needs to be everybody focused on getting out the vote. The final thing is that, and if there are any lawyers on the phone on the call, you can clarify. But right now, you know, with the vote being certified for the third time, all of the things about the voting machines and all of that is now off the table as it relates to this third, in effect, third certification. So that now is not the issue. And as of last night and today, the governor is holding, at least for now, on not calling any kind of special legislative session.
Okay, that's good. And I also want to offer my condolences to the people of Georgia. I understand that Donald Trump showed up for a rally, which, if that's any indication, the COVID rate in Georgia is probably going to now go through the roof. Does anyone have anything else to add about Georgia at this point in time?
Yeah, I'll add something, Harvey. The election software project is doing what we did in the 7 battleground states before the election. For this election, we are going to be, protecting the vote and getting requests out, so we're in a position to do something immediately after the election, if it turns out it looks like there were problems in getting the vote accurately counted. In terms of being in a position to do something about the machines, just the way we were in the 7 battleground states on the morning of November 4th.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Pete Pekarski, for that. You put the name of your organization in the chat, if you would, please. That would be
Sure,
great.
will do.
Okay, thank you. Yes, someone else?
Joel,
Wait. Do we have Steve Rosenfeld? Is that, and then Kevin Costa? Did I hear Stephen?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay, Kevin Costa?
Yes, Kevin Coster, and I'm the co-chair of Our Revolution Massachusetts. And people probably have noted in the chat, and it's probably too long what I cut and posted from our fundraising email that went out yesterday. But we're supporting, we're an affiliate of Our Revolution National, and we're helping Our Revolution in Georgia. We have 50,000 people down there, and we've got some great organizers, and we're sponsoring one of their organizers and raising 20 grand. So we just launched this effort yesterday, and we're going to try to contribute. Some great people there. They're from Georgia, progressives in the best sense of the word, and we're doing what we can to sponsor that. A particular person there to really work full time, all out until this is over, and work with. So I appreciate your patience with me, and thank you.
Well, Kevin, will you put your contacts in the chat, please, and contact me after the call directly at solartopia@gmail. We need to connect with Our Revolution, and we haven't had that connection before. So please get in contact. We're going to go to the national scene.
Could I say one thing on that?
Yes,
and that what Kevin just said is very important on a couple of levels. First of all, we appreciate everything you're doing with the NAACP for all of you on this call, and we're always building coalitions. One of the most exciting new coalitions we built came out of this call just a couple of weeks ago with the Center for Common Ground. And Kevin, if you got people on the ground, there are two things about that is, we can collaborate with your folks that are here. We'd love to do that. And number two, the other important thing that you're doing is you're supporting Georgians who are already here. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are trying to come to Georgia, and in the middle of a pandemic, we're kind of frowning on that. We need to have less travel because that finding places for people to stay, dealing with people who are not really familiar, especially if you're doing canvassing and other things that are person to person, is better to have Georgia people. So to put your resources behind Georgia people really makes a lot of sense.
Yes, why don't you be in touch, Kevin, and I'll put you in. We'll have a three-way, and send me your phone number, Kevin, and we'll have a three-way conversation with Ray. We also have Joe CHERYLE, chair of the woman of the Topeka Our Revolution. So we need to really plug into Our Revolution and get the interface in good shape with the NAACP down there. Okay.
Harvey,
yes,
I have
Ruth.
one. Yeah, just one quickie. To Ray, number one, should we be donating to the state NAACP, or is the Atlanta NAACP equivalent to donating to the state?
The Atlanta NAACP is the entity that has formulated this 19 county initiative that comprises 18 other NAACP branches, along with all of those organizations that I described earlier. We are, and I want to be careful here. We don't want to say anything negative, but we've just been at this a lot longer and in a lot more detailed kind of way than the Georgia NAACP, especially over the last 5 years in the way that we're talking about here. The NAACP Atlanta was itself formed in 1917 and has had a major presence around the state and has the support of a variety of other branches. We're kind of the hub and spoke approach, and we're the hub to transfer resources and help coordinate with the most critical NAACP branches in the state.
Great.
One other thing, one other quickie. You mentioned that the Democratic Party hasn't been much support, and like they say, don't get me started on Tom Perez. But can the Democratic Party contribute to get out the vote, or is it because they're the Democratic Party that they really have to remain, quote unquote, nonpartisan and not contribute? Can you clarify that?
No, again, they just have not seen the value of grassroots, boots on the ground approach for organizations that are embedded in the Black community with respect. That's the only way I can put it. We have gone to them. We have tried over the years. And unfortunately, they just don't get it. They would prefer, in most cases, to run a top-down kind of organizational structure, focused primarily on advertising and controlling from centralized location. We are the opposite of that.
You're absolutely right. And like I said, Tom Perez is next to useless, or actually a negative for a lot of state races. But I'm on the website right now for Democrats.org, and maybe people can write them. There's a contact box, and write them, that this is extreme. This is, critical that they support you all at this time. So maybe people can write them.
Absolutely, but we've gone to them, with a tin cup in our hand multiple times, and we just decided we've got to go another route, because we don't have time to spend on the phone with them writing up papers and telling them why. We already know the folks that they're trying to get to know, and we can help deliver efficiently to the folks that they're trying to get to. We just decided we're going to go do the work and worry about that later.
Wow. And speaking of which, we're joined by Reverend Glenn C. Redrick, one of the great
Ray,
grassroots
Harvey,
organizers in North Carolina. Real quick, Pete.
Yeah, Ray, I want to assure you, I get what you're talking about. I'm one of the people who ran for chair of the Democratic National Committee last time. I get exactly what you're talking about. That's the way we did it in Wisconsin. That's one of the reasons we got the good result this year. Let's be in touch later on.
Thank you, Pete. And Ray, what you said, it makes me wonder why the Democratic Party is not, in control of the U.S. Senate, or why they lost seats in this election. Is there anybody else with anything specific to Georgia?
Yeah, Harvey, Steve here. Let me just say something that as a reporter that I've observed, and I have a report that maybe will be helpful for these folks that's now on Bill Moyer's site. It came out today about some of these grassroots efforts. These are 501c3s. They're nonprofits. They can't take money from these political committees. They can only hope that some of the big donors of these committees will give to them. So you got people on this call have to be a little smarter than that. And I won't say what being smarter than that means, but that's part of the problem here, why there's no crossover. The other thing is some of the groups in Georgia that are getting the most national television don't have their act together on the ground, or didn't have it before the November election. Whereas some of the other folks who are on this call actually have people. I was there for 10 days and I saw some people who were out in the streets doing stuff. Other people were just talking about it. So I just want to mention that and leave it there. People can read into that what I think is obvious, but do I need to say it? Stacey Abrams is getting all the money. She doesn't have her act together with lots of people on the ground outside of Atlanta. These people do. The Democrats are not giving to groups like Ray because they're 501c3s, and the NAACP cannot be partisan. They can only talk about voter education issues. So we got to be smart about how you thread this needle. And that's what's really going on. And it's a turnout election at this point forward. Registration is over as of today, and it's all about turnout. And I'll just leave it right there.
Okay, thank you. And just for the record, that's one of the reasons we talk about the PSC races, because our understanding is that Daniel Blackman is on the ground in the rural areas talking about an issue that means a lot to people, which is broadband and their utility rates. Daniel,
but let me also say something, and Steve is absolutely right. But the fact of the matter is as well, that when you look at getting African-American turnout out, 95% of Black women are going to vote Democratic in most races. So we don't have to talk about anything other than getting the vote out. We don't have to be partisan in order to accomplish what is going to accomplish a common thing. And we don't have to have somebody give us a direct contribution if we just had support. And there are multiple ways you can give support, and you get absolutely none of that. So he's right. And we are very mindful of our 501c3 status.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Daniel Wolf.
Hi, this is for Ray. I'm with Democracy Counts. We have a bunch of audit tools used for protecting the vote. I'm just wondering whether you are interested in talking about how to deploy them with no work to your forces.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me just say that we are laser focused right now on turnout for January 5th, because we know the history of runoffs in Georgia.
Absolutely.
And so we're laser focused on that. But to an earlier point that was being made by the sister from Michigan, I believe it was,
yeah,
we've got to turn more ruthless and more strategic in being year-round organizations as opposed to seasonal around elections. And we'd love to build capacity with someone like you so that we can continue these operations and build up that kind of capacity going forward beyond January the 5th. So we'd love to do that.
Speaking of beyond January, yeah, if you guys will put your, Daniel, if you'll put your contacts in the chat, that would be great. And we can facilitate you getting in touch with Ray. So I do want to point out that Ray has agreed, and he and Joel Segal will be leading the charge on gerrymandering after January 5th. You know, our 4-year campaign, Election Protection 2024, one of the major things we're going to focus on is gerrymandering, and Joel is going to lead that charge, and Ray has agreed, right, Joel, to join in on that. It's a very big deal, and we're really happy about that.
Ray's the co-chair, and what we're planning on doing is making sure 2 things happen. One is, as many states as we can, we want to introduce a gerrymandering bill at the same date, at the same time, to basically show that our revolution against Jim Crow gerrymandering, time up for that. Yeah, just thank you, Harvey, for your leadership. And we've had well over sometimes 169 people on this call. Just want to emphasize that we've really got to stay together, because, you know, the best is yet to come in terms of this movement that we have. And in terms of legislation, whether it's restoring the 1965 Civil Rights Act, I think it really is got to be a #1 priority. Voter suppression is stemming from the gutting of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which people bled and marched and died for. And when I worked in Congress, I mean, lobbying Congress on it, I have to tell you, it was not a #1 priority. It was somewhere down at the bottom.
And now it's at the top, and we're going to work with on gerrymandering as well. And in fact, this whole situation is directly impinged by gerrymandering. Thank you, everybody. It's 5:40, 3:40 in 6:40 Eastern, 3:40 in California.
Hey, Harvey,
great call. Yes.
I'm sorry. It's not at the top. We have to make it. We have to push it to the top. Let's never, as someone who worked in Congress for 13 years, never ever assume that the Democrats are going to do the right thing. You got to push them.
All right, we learned that as well. Thank you, everybody. Great to see everybody. Bob FITRAKIS, you'll lead off next week with our legal opinions here. You know, these are really hairy, scary times. I take these threats of martial law very seriously, and the legal situation is really up in the air. So let's keep on it in Georgia and keep watching nationwide. Dorothy, thank you for assuring us that we have the people of the country on our side, and let's hope that continues to be the case. Pete, thanks for your legal advice. Ray, it's good to see you, and we'll have more next week. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Was there an Adam? Was there an Eve? Or did we evolve from what we conceived? Either way, we got what we needed when the sun shone down on the Garden of Eden.